Mr. Speaker, Mwai Kibaki comes from Nyeri. He was the MP for Othaya for all the time he lived. The people of Othaya did not... true, he started in Bahati or Donholm. And finally, the people of Nyeri came and they fetched him from here back to Nyeri. And I'm saying, for the people of Nyeri, they had total confidence in Mwai Kibaki. Even during the times of Mlolongo, Mwai Kibaki was among the very few people who had no challenges. Some of you may not remember what Mlolongo was. Now, Mwai Kibaki, I came to know Mwai Kibaki about over 40 years ago. And what struck me is how Mwai Kibaki was able to relate to me as a young man, and we kept together up to his final days. Now, for us from Nyeri, and for that matter for the whole country, we all know Mwai Kibaki as a great leader who always thought good of other people. A man who, in spite of his greatness, respected all the people who came around him and they appreciated him. And we have truly lost a great man. Now, as it happens always, I remember the words of Mark Antony, that I come to Bali Caesar, not to praise him. Mr. Speaker, we can, the praises of Mwai Kibaki cannot be enumerated in any manner through any single speech. But the greatest of all is the character of Mwai Kibaki. As we stand today, we recollect the good times that he created in this country as the president of this country. But reflecting earlier, Mwai Kibaki, when he was Minister for Finance, he did a lot to actually improve the economy of this country, improve the lives of many ordinary Kenyans. But most of the many things that today we witness in this country, the major cash crops that have been put up in this country, from coffee, tea, dairy industry, the sugar production, all the other programs of cashew nut factories that were there at the coast, and the major other things, including even KMC for the pastoralists, were done when he was Minister for Finance. And Mwai Kibaki, as the Minister for Finance, working under Mwai Kenyatta, he foresaw the Africanization of the economy in this country, the Africanization of businesses in this country. And this is where bodies like ICDC were conceived and became actually the driving machinery for the African business people. Bodies today which have gone into actually a state where they are not serving their purpose. The AFC, which was formerly Agricultural Bank. All these bodies were set, through Mwai Kibaki as the Minister for Finance, and of course, through the policy of Mwai Kenyatta. And Kenya became one of the shining countries in the world. Now, Mr. Speaker, we also remember Mwai Kibaki. When he became president, he had a clear vision of what he wanted. And the vision he wanted was to see that the ordinary man of Kenya actually was improved their livelihood. The issue of the education sector is a big milestone that he brought. But in all this, what did we learn? There are many things we could talk of greatness of a man. But the greatest things that a man should be remembered about is his humanity, his human self. When we look at Mwai Kibaki, the fact that he conspicuously the issue of free education, free primary education, and in recognition that there are many children, and there are many children that cannot afford school fees, is a very great thing. I remember that then his Minister for Finance, Professor George Saitot, telling me that it was through the sheer effort and the sheer encouragement of Mwai Kibaki that that program had to take off. And many people did not believe that it would have taken off, but it did. Therefore, as we stand here, let's see a man who was so great that he was thinking of the future of the ordinary children who cannot, Mr. Speaker, afford to get to school. And he brought the system, which I must say, it is not running in the manner that it was running during the presidency of Mwai Kibaki. The other greatest thing that we should all remember Mwai Kibaki is being content with what he has. Mwai Kibaki, in spite of the many years he remained in power, as finance minister for many years, as vice president to Moi for many years, and finally as president, we had nobody has ever can mention anywhere Mwai Kibaki's name was mentioned in relation to what today we are referring as a glorious thing called corruption. Because we have designed a system today where you only become, let's say rich through the route of corruption. Mwai Kibaki, that is something that he has remained in the midst of all evil. He remained standing upright and pure. Now, I remember when he became president, he declared zero tolerance to corruption, Mr. Speaker. And truly to the matter, he did not spare even the closest to him. I had one time an opportunity when the late Kalisa Maitha came to my office, and he sent me. His whole purpose was to send me to Mwai Kibaki to convey that he was a bit upset that he was being pushed or some maneno with City Hall regarding some insurance, something. And I can say, when I went to see Mwai Kibaki at State House, it was not an easy discussion between us, because Mwai Kibaki could not understand how I was going to talk on behalf of somebody who is being, mentioned, and as we continue talking, me not realizing how the matter was deep in his heart, he actually, have never seen him for once shout and tell me, go and tell that man that he must stop those habits. And then it stopped there. But I can say, Mwai Kibaki was very clear. Zero tolerance meant anybody mentioned with the corruption, man, he had no time for him. Mr. Speaker, when I say this, I know the hearts of many Kenyans can be pained today. How many people have been taken or have been mentioned? Billions in COVID, billions even in this house, governors coming here with impeachment, and nothing is happening. They all seem to walk out there, and then we are witnessing a country that is bleeding, where the economy is not doing well. Truly, we must commend Mwai Kibaki for being so clear-minded that the only way to save the country is to save it from these people, kind of scavengers, who believe they will be scavenging on the public resources, Mr. Speaker. And that's what made Kenya what it is. Mwai Kibaki brought a culture in this country where hard work, he preached hard work to everybody, and he preached that you don't have to steal to be rich. And let me say, the other most notable thing to learn from Mwai Kibaki is the fact that to be poor is not a question of what you have, or to be rich is not a question of what you have. To be poor is a question of what you wanted to have minus what you have. And Mwai Kibaki lived with content with what he had, and we all actually admire that kind of spirit of a man. Mr. Speaker, we also remember Mwai Kibaki as somebody who had the capacity to actually cooperate even with people he did not come agree with. And I want to say I have witnessed various incidents. And I remember one time I dared and I had courage. And I told him, I went to State House, and it had taken a year. When Mwai Kibaki took over, there were a kind of skirmishes between the former people who are in government and the people who are in his new government. And I told Mwai Kibaki, I believe, Mzee, I would recommend that it would be good you invite Mzee Moi for a cup of tea. And he asked me, Sasa, tutatuma nani? And I gave the name of Bishop Yego, and they started discussion with Mzee Moi. So, Mwai Kibaki was somebody who appreciated any idea, odd as it looked. And that is one of the greatness of men. When we come to our area in Nyeri, there are things that we will remember Mwai Kibaki for. And one of the greatest things we remember Mwai Kibaki is that he actually managed to settle the people who had been chased out of the Mount Kenya forest, who are actually living under what is called the Chaba system in Mount Kenya forest, in Aberdare forest, and settle them in what today is called Solio village, some 15,000 acres of land. And those people had lived miserably on the footpaths of small rural roads for over 20 years. And they had been removed through some dubious, miscellaneous accusation that they could be harboring to some insecurity problems in where they were living. People who had lived in the, helping in conservation of Mount Kenya forest and the conservation of Aberdare forest, and today we see how the forests have been depleted. Therefore, Mwai Kibaki will be remembered by those people and all the people around Nyeri and Laikipia as somebody who came to their rescue for their livelihood, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the other most trying moments, although I was a young man, was the time of JM karaoke. And Mwai Kibaki had one of the hardest times, and he stood to his form as a man of his character. And I remember his words at the burial of JM karaoke, where he said, even if it takes 100 years, the truth will be known. I want to say, Mwai Kibaki was a man who lived upright in spite of all the years that were surrounding him again and again. Now, we also learn from Mwai Kibaki things to do with the democracy, things to do with the rule of law, and things to do with the freedom of speech. During Mwai Kibaki's time, he took over and he actually liberalized the issues of the media to an extent which is very admirable today. And, and for Mwai Kibaki, he did not mind criticism, and he believed that criticism was the way to actually improve a country, and you have to let people be able to air their views. And therefore, as we mourn Mwai Kibaki, as a country and as a people, we also remember him as somebody who actually wished to set up a governance system in this country, a governance system for all the people, as envisaged in the best governments of the world. In this regard, I want to say in this particular time of politicking which we are doing, let's remember Mwai Kibaki, and follow his example and ensure that in spite of the struggles and the bitterness that sometimes is developing and the temperatures that are developing, we should always emulate Mwai Kibaki and ensure that Kenya remains a peaceful country, and we see a peaceful election for the welfare of our people. And to me, I'm saying this sincerely because we have already witnessed the high temperatures, and they are going to get higher. And we should always remember that we are all one Kenya, as Mwai Kibaki showed when they shook hands with Mwai Raila Odinga, and Kenya became a one country, a united country, moving in good state. Therefore, I want to call upon the likes of my brother Wetangula, in spite of the divisions that are there, let us remember that there is always shaking of hands. A country will be one. Fine. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm only calling upon Kenyans that as we go to the next elections, in the memory of Mwai Kibaki, let's ensure that we keep peace and unity in this country. In spite of whatever results that the elections will bring, let us remain together as brothers and sisters and carry on in the memory of Mwai Kibaki. Mr. Speaker, I must also call upon Kenyans and upon the government. As Mwai Kibaki had set an example that he will not tolerate anything to do with corruption. This country is bleeding with corruption. The billions that we are reading, and I keep on telling people, a billion, which most of us have not seen, is not small money. A billion. Now, I'm just saying, if you put a billion in a house, and every day you take 10,000 shillings, every day you use 10,000 shillings, it will take you 207 years to finish the billion. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, when we are reading about the billions that are actually being spewed by individuals, 2 billion a day, honestly, let's remember the memory of Mwai Kibaki and ensure that those thieves that are stealing the money in this country, the resources, such that we cannot get medicines in our hospitals, we cannot, afford to equip our schools as they should be equipped. Mr. Speaker, the same people who are subjecting this country to high cost of prices of things, let us ensure, and I call upon everybody, let's ensure that these people are put in a committee where they belong, and Kenya starts being the country that we envisaged it to be. Let me also say, Mwai Kibaki, although he was a believer in the free economy, in the parliament, I brought a bill, the price control bill, which was supported by the whole parliament, and it was talking about 10 items, which today, even today, when I listen to Kenyans, they are crying about it. Maize flour, rice, cooking oil, paraffin, petrol, diesel. I enumerated 10 things that I felt government should be actually having a control on prices. Because I don't believe that we should ever be living in a country where common people cannot afford basic commodities. And, Mr. Speaker, in spite of the major opposition from many people in the executive, I want to say, to this day, I'm very grateful to Mwai Kibaki. He signed that into an act of parliament, and it remains not effected. And I would call upon, in the memory of Mwai Kibaki, let that act be enacted, so that Kenyans can actually be given a certain price on unga, if nothing else, on rice, on cooking fat, so that every Kenyan can feed. Because some of us don't believe we should be in a country where some people go hungry when others are throwing food into the dustbins, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that is one of the things that I feel should be done in the memory of Mwai Kibaki, enacting that law which he signed. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that there is a lot that we learn from Mwai Kibaki. Some of us who have had time to share with him, personally, and also as our leader. And to the family of Mwai Kibaki, I want to tell them that what has happened is a natural thing. God is the one who actually decides when you are in this world and when you live in this world. And I take this opportunity to send my condolences to the family, to the children, starting with Jude, Jimmy, David, and Tony. And I, for one, as the Senator of Nyeri, and whatever else I'll be tomorrow, they can remain assured that they will always have me to do all that pertains to be done when they need my service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
May the soul of Mwai rest in peace among the angels of heaven. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Mutula Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. First, Speaker, to the family of the late Mwai Kibaki, the constituents, the country generally, where he comes from, Nyeri, from Senator Ephraim, allow me to pass my condolences and that of my wife, Anita, and the people of Makueni on losing such a great man. Mr. Speaker, the young people like myself and others can only repeat sentiments of what we have had. We've not had the opportunity like Senator Wetangula, Senator Maina, Senator Orengo, Senator Ongeri, who had the privilege of working with this good man. Stories are told about this man. And I allow me, Mr. Speaker, to recall the sentiments that my late father shared about this good man. He said, this is one man that Kenya will miss. I don't know what he meant then, but watching him lying in this parliament there reminds me that of the words of Solomon, all is vanity. I hope our presidential candidates and the people who want to rule this country can learn some lessons about this good gentleman, Mwai Kibaki. Senator Orengo didn't mention that when he was Minister for Lands, and after assuming office, the first thing the mandarins of NAC government wanted to do was take away the property of Mzee Moi. And this good gentleman, President Kibaki, instructed Senator Orengo to deliver the title deed of Cabinet Gardens to Mzee Moi. While he would have taken revenge, and while in 2003, he had the power and influence to punish those who were in Kano at the time, Mr. Speaker, President Kibaki did not do so. We want a president who will not revenge. We want a president who will consider every Kenyan, those who voted and who voted for and against him as part of this country. Mr. Speaker, Shakespeare once said, "The evil that men do is written in brass, and the good deeds that they do are written in water." I'm not sure, Mr. Speaker, that the politicians of this country believe in what Mwai Kibaki believed in. We don't. Because he left a country that was less corrupt. We are very corrupt. There is actually a picture of something he said. I can't remember it offhand, but there's a very nice picture on the, is it 6th floor or 2nd floor of Arambe House, about what Kibaki thought about corruption and service to the people. It nearly appears like a contradiction that it appears in that place, because a lot of the bad things that have happened to this country, some of them have happened in that building. Mr. Speaker, I remember this president, after he left office, as a gentleman who I saw every other Sunday at the Consolata Shrine, where I go every Sunday. We used to go every Sunday. I used to walk there simply. And Mr. Speaker, I think that the future of this country, and I'm not quite sure whether somebody is going to write a book about this man. I'm not sure whether we will produce a man like this. But Mr. Speaker, a lot of things need to be written about the late Mwai Kibaki. I recall vividly the story about the Constitution told by my late father. Mr. Speaker, if it wasn't for Mwai Kibaki remaining firm, a lot of the people in his government did not want a new constitution. He just remained very firm. And every time they used to conspire, there's a word my father used which I will not use here, and he sought for his opinion. He said, what the minister has said will follow. And it's through following the advice and what Senator Orengo is saying, listening. I admire this gentleman for his patience and listening. We are quick to judge, we are quick to anger, we are quick to punish our enemies. And Mr. Speaker, since I do not aspire to be a president, those who aspire to be presidents of this republic must borrow a leaf from Mwai Kibaki. He led a cabinet of 42, was it 42? Cabinet ministers. Can you imagine? ODM, Wiper then, ODM Kenya, and his own party. All these people, Anyang' Nyong'o, Orengo, Raila, him, and others were in the same cabinet. The current government is having problems with 20. Just 20. He led a government and he found a process. And he believed in processes. We are going to miss Kibaki, I tell you. I recall a time when I was asked to speak about the BBI, Building Bridges Initiative. And I said, and I won't repeat why I said this, and I said, you're going to miss President Mwai Kibaki and what he did for us to get a new constitution. The constitution he promulgated in 2010 is untouched. So many years later. Why? Because he believed in processes. And we got a new constitution despite opposition to it because this man believed in processes. I'm saying, if we want to believe in the legacy of one Mwai Kibaki, we must follow process. Those who speak about ill-gotten wealth, I represented two people who were together with my late father, who were said at the time to be very close to him. One of them was a central bank governor, who was his economic advisor. When he was alleged to have committed crime when as governor of Central Bank, he went to him. He told him, Mr. Speaker, that I'm an innocent man. Mwai Kibaki told him, go and defend yourself in court. And true to his word, Governor Mulay was found innocent of the crimes for which cabinet ministers in Mwai Kibaki's government conspired to have Governor Mulay removed from office. The second gentleman from Nyeri, who was also his good friend, his name was John Munge.
What's your point of order, Senator Yako?
I hate interrupting my very eloquent future, present and future colleague, and who will also be your colleague, Mr. Speaker, in COG. He said that cabinet ministers conspired to have somebody charged. I was in that cabinet, and I do not want to say much because I'll steal his thunder. There was no such conspiracy. If it took place, it was not at the cabinet level, it was in the kitchen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Well, I know the people who wanted Mulay charged. One time I met one of them who was charged alongside him, and I reminded him, you charged Governor Mulay, and now you have been charged. I believe that the point is made. The second gentleman is called John Munge. He used to run Cham Munge and Partners, a very good old buddy of the President. He was charged on a matter involving Eurobank when he went to his friend and told him he's innocent. He was then the KRA Commissioner General, and they told him, please help me. He told him, go and defend yourself in court. Of course, Mr. John Munge was found innocent. He passed on recently, may his soul rest in peace, but it exemplifies what I'm talking about. If the example of what Kibaki believed in was followed in the current government, a lot of people will either be in jail or in court with corruption. So I believe that as we bury this man, a lot of us are going to make sentiments that we don't believe in. Because Kibaki never protected his friends. Kibaki allowed processes to be followed. And since he was a good parliamentarian, as Senator Omogeni has mentioned, he allowed Parliament to do what it's supposed to do. We must tell our presidential candidates, those who want to become presidents, that you must emulate Mwai Kibaki. Don't preach water and drink wine. You must believe in processes. Mwai Kibaki was sued. I remember when he appointed the county commissioner, Mwai Kibaki never lifted a finger. He said, yes, proceed. And I believe the next chief executive of this republic must be able to tell us that he will follow the footsteps of Mwai Kibaki in terms of allowing processes, because that's what this gentleman believed in. I cannot not mention, Mr. Speaker, the question of debt. This man left this country with no debt or very little debt. And since we are eulogizing him, let's say the things as they are so that somebody can learn a lesson. Was it because this gentleman, the Makerere student, was a good economist? Did the economist disappear soon after Mwai Kibaki? The answer is no. What he did is that this good gentleman had an economic council, National Economic Council, ECOSOC, that advised him. That is the reason our economy was thriving in his time. That's the reason we borrowed less. And this is really some of the lessons that as we eulogize him, we must call it as it is. This country, I must say, has been mismanaged after Kibaki. I will say it for the record and for his grandchildren to read. Mwai Kibaki led a peaceful transition. If we don't remember him for anything else, he's a gentleman who handed over the sword of leadership in a manner that left this country in one piece. When I say so, I am speaking to the current president. This man was your mentor lying in parliament. You must leave Kenya in peace when you hand over power, because there will be no other president. I believe that President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to do the right thing, as his predecessor did. Mr. Speaker, let me end and say that it's unfortunate that the country has lost all other presidents who have left us. It would have been nice, and I have suggested that in future, any president who leaves office must form sort of an elders' council where they can guide their successors on matters management of the country. A time will come when we'll have 5 retired presidents, or 6 or 7. We can't just let them go into their retirement. They should find an opportunity to guide, like it happens in America. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, as we eulogize this good gentleman, I pray that this country will have a peaceful election. Those like Senator Wetangula, who has said and spoken about my party leader, who deputized successfully the Mwai Kibaki, must remind that our Dr. Stephen Kalonzo, our party leader, is like Job. You know, the man is just going through trials. It's just trials. And a good Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, the peaceful man, is quiet. It's not because he doesn't know what to do or what to say. It's not because we don't know what to do or what to say. We are peaceful people. We are watching. All of you. That doesn't mean you take advantage of him or us. And nobody is going to marry us by force. No. We are going to do everything. We are going to do everything. Those who sit with him and those who advise him, we're going to do it, everything, doing it willingly. Willingly. Because this country is bigger than all of us. I think at some point everybody must think about the country more than we love ourselves. So we have taken your advice, and as usual, we are going to take notes. We are taking notes. Those of you who are inviting us, we are taking notes. We are watching you. I don't think you're just going to invite us and we walk in there like we are jilted. We are not. Thank you.
Senator Christopher Langat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this great opportunity to eulogize this particular great man, Mr. Mwai Emilio Stanley Kibaki. Was a great leader and will be remembered because of what we can see today out of what he did. I want to pass my condolences on behalf of the people of Bomet to the family and to the Kenyans that this particular man touched their lives in a very special way. And I want to say that Mwai Kibaki was a great man, right from the family level, Mr. Speaker. So I remember very well that he worked with his wife closely when he was the president of this particular country. He even went ahead to protect his family by even making a press statement to declare that Lucy Kibaki was the only wife that he had. You know, it was great. And I tend to think that he set a great example to most of the people of this country. I want to say in leadership that he was an economic giant, that actually he rescued this country at the point of need, when we were expecting that everything was in disarray. Economically, there comes a time when Kibaki arrived as the president of this country and saved the economy of this country. He will be remembered forever. I want to say also that in education, this is the man that when he declared free education, free universal primary education, most of the people doubt if that would succeed. But it succeeded so much that I remember when I was in university, almost every student was researching on the success of free primary education in this country. Most of the people went back to school, as Senator Wetangula had said, including an elder by the name Aruge. Most of the people left looking after the cattle to go back to school, and today most of those people are working in various sectors in this country. So he gave hope to most of the Kenyans on matters education. As far as the infrastructure is concerned, the Thika Highway is a living example for the rest of our life to remember Mzee Mwai Kibaki. I want also to say that on fight against corruption, he set a good example. He could not even spare his closest friends. Whenever they were mentioned, he was the first one to tell them to step aside for investigation to take place. And many a times, those who stepped aside and they were investigated came back clean, though most of them also fell casualties. So I tend to think that he was a man who fought corruption by action and improved the economy of our country. On matters to do with health, right from the time he was the Minister of Health, I remember the health sector was so much improved, especially during that time when Nyayo wards were being established across the country. And the health sector was so much improved during his particular time. And as much as he was a pragmatic leader, he believed in action-oriented leadership. And I tend to think that is why he spoke less, and most of the work is demonstrated in action. And he was the president of this country, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, as far as this character analysis is concerned, he was the most forgiving human being that I've ever experienced in life. All those who tormented him in his attempt to become the president of this country, everybody expected him to revenge when he came to power, but he simply forgot about it and forged ahead and forgive them and even rescued their wealth so that they could continue well. So I want to say, when it comes to learning on forgiving our enemies, I think we get a lot of lessons from Mwai Kibaki. He was also very resilient. Remember, he suffered so much. He became the president of the Republic of Kenya. He led the country the right way. I can also learn to be a fighter, to getting whatever you want. He was a go-getter. He fought so many times to become the president of this country. And at the point where everybody was almost declaring him irrelevant in the fight, that is the moment he clicked to leadership in this country. So I want to say that his spirit of fighting will always remain as an example to most of us in this country, that there is always hope for those who are hopeful. He was a very humble leader and a very brilliant scholar that we shall always emulate him. So I want to say that Mwai Kibaki was a great leader, that we have a lot to borrow from him. And I want to say that for those of us who are still fighting as far as leadership is concerned, we must always borrow a lot from him. And I want to say on behalf of the people of Bomet, may his soul rest in peace, and may he live forever in our lives, more so in actions that we can see today and forever. I still condole the family and the Kenyans, and may his soul rest in peace. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Wambua Enokio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to also add my voice in paying my tributes to a great man. Madam Speaker, it has been said, and I want to add my voice, that indeed the late President Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki had a checkered political career. I think he's going down in history as the longest serving member of parliament, having served, actually I'm being reminded by my leader here, Senator Wetangula, that is probably the longest serving member of parliament in the Commonwealth. Having served this country for 50 years as a member of parliament in Donholm and Othaya, having served...
there is a point of information, Senator Kio. Would you like to be informed by Senator Mbogo?
Madam Speaker, I will take the information.
Okay. Senator Mbogo Ochila Ayako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to inform my colleague that I think he is second to Sir Winston Churchill, who served for 51 years. That's the correct information in the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I don't know whether to take that because my colleague is not very sure. He's saying perhaps he is second to Churchill. So unless we get the facts right, Madam Speaker, I will stick to eulogizing my fallen president as the longest serving member of parliament in the Commonwealth. Madam Speaker, it will be remembered that the late President Mwai Kibaki successfully served as the fourth Vice President of the Republic of Kenya. He had a successful career in the cabinet in several dockets, including finance, home affairs, and health, just to mention but a few. He was a founder member and leader of a Democratic Party, a man who rose to be the official leader of opposition in Parliament and eventually became our president and served for 10 years. Madam Speaker, on my own behalf, on behalf of my family, on behalf of the people of Kitui County, on behalf of the people from the Lower Eastern region, and the wiper fraternity spread across the country, I convey our condolences to our fallen president and the family of Mzee Mwai Kibaki. We say we condole with you. Madam Speaker, I want to say a few things about President Mwai Kibaki. I did not have the opportunity to serve directly under him, as did Senators Wetangula, Senator Ochilo, Senator Pogisio and Orengo and the rest of the senators that served under Kibaki. But, Madam Speaker, I am a direct beneficiary of the benefits of the good leadership of our fallen president. When I served in media, the Speaker for 16 years, from the year 2000 to the year 2016, within which time the fallen president served as president for 10 of those years. The Speaker, we enjoyed real press freedom. It is during Kibaki's tenure that the media space in this country was expanded and journalists had opportunity to report on everything under the sun. In fact, it was under President Kibaki's leadership that we as media people boldly reported about the hills in government without looking over our shoulders. We took on cabinet ministers without looking over our shoulders, without being harassed. And we served under a president who believed and lived the principles of journalism that believe that a free media is a nation talking to itself. So under President Kibaki, the media enjoyed great freedom. Madam Speaker, it was under the leadership of President Mwai Kibaki that we got the Constitution of 2010. And, Madam Speaker, it shall be remembered that this Constitution has been applauded across the world as the most progressive Constitution of this side of the world. In the legislature, under the 2010 Constitution, we in this Senate are creatures of that Constitution. In the judiciary, we have the Supreme Court. And in the executive, we created the office of the Deputy President. Those are the highlights of the Constitution 2010, not forgetting devolution and all the good things, the Bill of Rights, all the good things that are to be found in our supreme law. And I want to say President Mwai Kibaki played a lead role to ensure that Kenyans gave themselves this wonderful constitution. Madam Speaker, the development record of the former president, our fallen hero, speaks for itself. The road network and this piece of road from Nairobi to Thika, the Thika Superhighway, has been mentioned in many places outside this country as a piece of really, really good work. Madam Speaker, we will not forget to mention the free primary education. And, you know, Madam Speaker, I draw a parallel without saying any bad things about anyone. I draw a parallel between the achievements of free primary education under President Mwai Kibaki and what is obtaining currently. You know, because President Kibaki inspired hope among people. When the doors were open for free primary education, people willfully took their children to school. Adults left their farms and trooped back to school. We all remember the images that we got from Olympics Primary School, where children from all over Nairobi just went to school. Madam Speaker, last year, I remember there was a government edict that chiefs and assistant chiefs are supposed to walk in homes to drive away children to go to school. Madam Speaker, if there is goodwill and if people see hope in what they're being offered, there will be no need to use government mandarins to force people to go to school. And the question that a lot of parents are asking themselves today, because, Madam Speaker, we have been elected to speak for and on behalf of the people that brought us to this house. A lot of the questions that parents are asking themselves is whether this free primary education is really free. There is still so much money that parents are supposed to pay for their children to access school. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, I received a call from a voter in Kitui, an anonymous call. And the caller was complaining, almost going to tears, that they had been given contracts to construct these so-called CBC classrooms. They have constructed the classrooms. The details in regard to the contracts have been filled and submitted to Jogo House. But when they come for payments, they are being taken round in circles. They are not being paid. And in fact, in his own words, people at Jogo House are indirectly asking for bribes to pay the contractors who have been asked to build these classrooms. Madam Speaker, in the days of President Mwai Kibaki, such things would not happen. And I want to challenge the government of the day as we eulogize President Mwai Kibaki, to call upon the Minister of Education to make sure that if money was set aside for people to get contracts to build CBC classrooms in our institutions, it's only fair you pay these people. There should be no conditions at all. Just pay these people their money because they have done the work. Madam Speaker, there is a sector that must forever be grateful to the late President Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki, the border sector. Madam Speaker, it is in the time of the leadership of President Mwai Kibaki that this sector started to grow its roots in this country. Today, Madam Speaker, it is probably the only sector that is growing. And because Kibaki planted the seed, I would ask the current and future governments to do what is right for these young people in the border sector. This is a sector that has grown to a level that we need a stand-alone legislation and regulation for it to operate as a sector in this country. So, Madam Speaker, I want to challenge the government of the day and future governments to look into ways and means of making the border sector a sector of our economy as an employer, as a contributor to the GDP, and as a means of just getting our young people employment. Madam Speaker, I'm hearing Senator Wetangula saying we shall do it. I don't know what he means by we, but I guess you can explain that better. The last thing, Madam Speaker, on the issue of President Mwai Kibaki. Debt. And this had been said by almost every speaker. Madam Speaker, by the time President Kibaki was leaving office, the economy was doing extremely well. The price of basic commodities was fairly affordable. Cement was going for between 450 to 500 shillings. Today, a packet of cement, I was in Turkana the other day, they're buying a packet of cement at 1,200 shillings. Wheat flour and maize flour, by the time Kibaki was leaving office, fairly affordable. 50 shillings, at most 60 shillings. Today, 150 shillings. The cost of fuel, Madam Speaker, and this is the cost of fuel even when it is available, because it's not even readily available. It's become completely unaffordable. Madam Speaker, how much time do I have? Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, by the time President Kibaki was leaving office, Madam Speaker, I think our debt was around 1.2, 1.3 trillion. Today, less than 10 years, we are at over 10 trillion Kenya shillings. It's incumbent upon this government and future governments to cushion Kenyans against the high cost of living. Madam Speaker, on the fight against corruption, Kibaki, the president, walked the talk. And I want to mention this, Madam Speaker, very respectively. My colleague here, the senator from Bungoma, some people brought allegations against him that he had been involved in the sale of an embassy in Japan. And the president said, let him step aside, you carry out your investigations. If he is found to have been involved, let him go to court and he will lose office. If he is cleared by the investigations, we will return him to office the following day. After investigations and our colleagues was found to be as white as snow, when he got the report, Senator Moses Masika Wetangula was recalled to office. That is President Kibaki for you. A man who, when it comes to public service, there are no friends or enemies. It's the law that must take its course. Today, Madam Speaker, we have a lot of people of questionable character, people who have looted public resources, but they're still in government, serving at the pleasure of the president. Madam Speaker, a time has come that maybe we should emulate Mwai Kibaki and do the right thing for this country. Lastly, Madam Speaker, and if I run out of time, Madam Speaker, I'll ask for a minute, because Senator Ochilo Ayako and Senator James Orengo made reference to my party leader, His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, in relation to the leadership of this country. Madam Speaker, I want to make it very clear, on my own behalf and on behalf of the Wiper fraternity, that we are not offering any bride for any marriage. Madam Speaker, whether consensual, arranged, or forced, there is no one who is offering any bride for any marriage. I've listened to the words of Senator Wetangula with more than passing interest. He says they have opened doors. We have heard that before. Madam Speaker, what I want to make very, very clear for this country to hear and to know is that Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka has served this country with distinction. If there is one man that we have to pay accolades to and respect and treat with the dignity that is due to him, that person is Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. When he was Kibaki's vice president, He supported the government of the day with everything that he had. He made it possible for his boss to deliver services to this country. When there was chaos in neighboring countries, he took responsibility and a duty of care to help form and stabilize governments in the DRC, in South Sudan, in Somalia. Madam Speaker, if I were my leader, Senator Orengo, or my senior colleague, Senator Ochilo, I would perhaps address Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka differently. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you very much. Ochilo, he has already cleared to do. The problem is that you cannot be out of order when he's out of the floor either. You know you are going to have your turn. Graft it around your turn. Sorry, you cannot be corrected when he has already vacated. I didn't see your click earlier. You should have clicked it a little bit earlier. Senator Maura Isaac.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a very important moment to eulogize the fallen third President of the Republic of Kenya, President Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki. And I start by reading a quote that is very famously attributed to him. The leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others. It is not an opportunity to satisfy personal greed. Another quote that is associated with our fallen president is that when he faced a challenge in the 1988 Cardinal nominations, he still won, but he said that even rigging has manners. And Madam Speaker, the shambolism that is associated with party nominations has been rampant across the political divide, and it has been used to deny the country of great leadership or people who have contrary opinion as and when this happens, and especially because even the turnout is usually very low to the detriment of good leadership. And I think at times, going by his assertion about leadership and rigging, is that then you've got to make a covenant with the devil. If you decide to rig yourself into power, and as it has been said before, political corruption is the mother of all corruption. That is a malaise that has affected our leadership in this country, to the extent that then we've not really gotten the dividend of our democratic engagement. Okay. I want to say, Madam Speaker, that personally, I stand here very happy because the fallen president, and you can hear the trumpets of the brass band as his body is being escorted out of Parliament, is that the president came to power on a wheelchair. This is very, very significant. He had gotten an accident, and he ended up being on a wheelchair as a result. And it's out of this, Madam Speaker, that President Mwai Kibaki promulgated the Persons with Disabilities Act number 14 of 2003 into law. That was a watershed because it enabled persons with disabilities whose bill had actually been in limbo in this Parliament for 10 years, since 1993, to see light of day. And it is actually out of that I myself, in 2004, under the leadership of my colleague, Senator George Ochilo Opondo Ayako, George Mbogo, I was appointed to sit in the first board of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, a body that was created to superintend over the affairs of people with disabilities by ensuring the implementation of the very law that created that body. So yes, I am a direct beneficiary of the leadership of President Mwai Kibaki in 2004. But earlier on also, it was quite interesting because there was a very serious scheme to deny him to become president. Because when I first registered as a voter in 2002, I couldn't vote for President Kibaki. The reason is many names that started with O and M had been omitted in the voter register. And even at some point, I think Raila Odinga's name was missing at Olympic Primary School, if I remember, in 2002, December 29th. But be that as it may, he still went ahead and won resoundingly with over 2 million votes at 63% of the vote. And that is how he was declared president, Yote Yawezekana, under the NAC banner. It should be remembered that President Mwai Kibaki kind of became a president by accident. He had tried to become president in 1992. He became, a good number 3, although in politics there's no number 2 or 3. In 1997, he became number 2, and then eventually he was a president of consensus because the then opposition formed the National Alliance Party of Kenya, NA, in bracket PK, and it was a constituent party of DP, the Democratic Party, a party that he founded, NAC, SDP, I beg your pardon, and such other parties that came together. And later on, they were joined by LDP, led by the then KANU renegades, under the leadership of Raila Odinga and others like George Saitoti, may so rest in peace, Kalonzo Musyoka, and others. So he really got into power, and there was a lot of hope. Over 500,000 people, thronged Uhuru Park to see his swearing in. And there was a lot of desire to change this country. Indeed, I remember, as a young university student that time, there was a lot of hopelessness in this country. The economy was in the doldrums. And I remember knocking the doors of Parliament there, the Continental House, bringing my friend Martin Obiero Okumu to see his then member of Parliament, the late Archbishop Ondieki, who had replaced our senior James Orengo as a member for Ugenya, because Martin Obiero Okumu, a blind man, I was his guide, was looking for school fees. And we were chased very badly at the gates there. We couldn't be allowed to be close to Parliament at that time. But it was good because we learned our lessons, although we went through college. Again, the benefits of a Kibaki government were again to have a direct impact on me because student leadership was banned in all public universities, Madam Speaker. I remember at that time we could have been at the university as a vice chancellor in Moi. And when it was reinstated, I happened to have been elected as a student leader at Kenyatta University, one out of the 7 student leaders at the Kenyatta University Student Association, together with my dear sister, Gladys Wanga, the incoming governor of Homa Bay. So it was really that, gesture that those who had clamored for reforms at the university level, that they got an opportunity to exercise leadership under the new democratic dawn that the NAC administration, birthed, of course, under the leadership of President Mwai Kibaki. And I remember we led a protest against the then Vice Chancellor, George Eshuani, may so rest in peace. And it's out of that also President Kibaki gave us a new Vice Chancellor, Professor Everett Maraka Standa, the poet, who, of course, ended up governing the university in a better way. So I am here standing as a direct beneficiary of President Mwai Kibaki's leadership. And further to it, I remember, without a nostalgia, that there was a boom of the economy. So much so that many of my colleagues who finished school with us were able to get jobs within their first year, that they did not tarmac for long, because the banks were employing They were hooking loans. There are so many businesses. Credit was available. And it is that inspiration. In fact, I was speaking to Mwai Kibaki, the son, this morning as I went to view, after I had viewed the body. That is the inspiration of the Kenya Kwanza, the UDA, a bottom-up economic model. That you can actually stimulate the economy from the bottom up and create many opportunities for so many millions of people. And it is very, very well documented in terms of macroeconomics. That's the only way you can ensure a country has been able to rise again. But if you have a very constricted economy, with very few people at the top, I think it's very, very, very serious that then you create a lot of poverty. And the levels of poverty that have been created in the last 10 years, it's horrible. It's horrible, Madam Speaker. We have actually regulated so many people in the doldrums of poverty. And that is not what our government should do. It's a total failure. When President Kibaki left office, he left the country with a public debt of 1.8 trillion because he borrowed very well every year about 200 billion for infrastructure projects. And at that point in time, the economy was financed locally, domestically, at 93% of the GDP. We were only borrowing about 6%. Today, all of our development budget is borrowed because of poor fiscal economic strategy. When he was there in power, I remember as a young, public servant, at a very young age of 22 years, having gotten my first government appointment, we used to practice what you call the medium-term expenditure framework. This was a 3-year budgeting cycle so that you would know your resource envelope 3 years in advance in terms of it was incremental. Today, it's yearly, and about 8,000 government projects have yet to be implemented because they are whimsical. And I remember the president saying, when he took over power in 2003, that the country shall not be led under the whims of an individual. He believed in the rule of law. And as a result, Madam Speaker, he promulgated the new constitution in 2010. He never felt the embarrassment as to the loss in 2005 no referendum that he lost actually to his erstwhile political nemesis in government and allies, led by Raila Odinga. He still kept the fire burning. And it is actually rumored and documented, actually, he was ready to relinquish power because he was a Democrat in 2007 until some forces prevailed upon him. And of course, there was the Grand Coalition government. But even then, he was very witty, an intelligent man, because when he constituted his first cabinet, he only appointed 17 members of the cabinet, I can remember very well, and left the other 17 to the then opposition. Even if the cabinet later on was, increased to 42 odd members, so that then we could be able to have ODM and PNU coalition, get into power. He's a president who never really, glorified himself. He removed his face from the currency even before this current constitution so provided. The only currency that bears his portrait is a 40 bob, coin, just because it was a new one. But otherwise, he refused to have himself named after every other thing that he launched. And for that, we remain grateful to him. In fact, even as recently as I think 1 or 2 years ago, he was approached to have the Odaya Referral Hospital named after him, but he actually recommended it be named Kenyatta National Hospital Annex. That's a great man. I think all of us would run at the slightest opportunity to name anything after ourselves because we feel that is the only way we can be remembered. So President Mwai Kibaki, the great economist, the great orator, who I think in 1982 was named in the Times magazine as one of the 100 greatest leaders. For sure, he lived up to this expectation. At some point, of course, people were disillusioned with his leadership because maybe in the way in which he spoke. I think he was very intelligent because people may have taken him for a fool because of the manner he presented himself in public, but that made him to survive the longest. He survived many people. At some point, he was called a perennial fence-eater. In fact, he was called a general Kigwea, but he finished last and he finished strong. I am happy that if you look at the biblical years of 70 years, he actually became president at the age of 72. And so therefore, he has lived his life to the full at the age of 90, almost 91, to see to it even that his successors, almost at the tail end of his successor, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who he also happened to have had the privilege of being his godfather upon his baptism. So President Mwai Kibaki then was a star, because that is to mean the first President Jomo Kenyatta must have identified that he had a great future as to occasion a situation where he would be the godfather of his own son. So this is a great man from the word go. Not a typical politician per se. He borders on the academic, Madam Professor Speaker, because you see he was plucked from Makerere University. In fact, very interestingly, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was impressed by the manifesto of the then ruling party under Milton Obote in Uganda. And he asked, you have a very good manifesto. He said, actually, it's not us who did it. There's a young Kenyan in Makerere who did it. It happened to be Mwai Kibaki. So Mwai Kibaki is the one who had actually made the manifesto of the then ruling party, for Milton Obote's government. And that is how Jaramogi Oginga, I beg your pardon, was able to invite him to become the executive officer of the then KANU party, and he rose to become, an executive officer stroke permanent secretary, and he rose from there up. He's a man we can see who was able to change with the times. When he couldn't secure Donholm, Bahati that time, he moved to Nyeri, and he formed his base very well. When he couldn't take it in, I think he still stayed there and waited for the opportune moment to start his DP party. I can imagine the embarrassment he went through when he had to be dropped as the vice president, and he was still retained in cabinet as Minister for Health. It must have been a very trying moment. He stayed for 10 good years in the opposition. I wonder whether he would have become a good president, Madam Speaker, had he not stayed in the opposition for those 10 good years. I think it's a question of seasoning. So that then, by the time he became president, then he knew the suffering of Kenyans, because if you live in this bubble of leadership after leadership, you may actually be bereft of the realities of the people that you want to lead. So I think he was meant for the moment. I'm afraid under the Jubilee administration that I have served and I've campaigned very seriously for, we've rolled back the economic gains that he had made. If we had continued with that legacy, we've actually we've eaten it off, and we are about 15 years back where we were before. Yes, indeed, there is a question of whether the issue of devolution and an expanded government, the 2 tiers of government, then is a reason. I beg to differ, because I remember President Kibaki struggling with the new governors led by Alfred Mutua and others who were then vocal, by him insisting that we are a unitary government. It's only that in the expansionist and building behavior of public servants, we didn't scale down what had been devolved as to occasion a reduction of government expenditure at the national level. Why, for example, today would 98 billion be used at the national headquarters of the Ministry of actually opened up with public universities to in a very big way. And it's out of that we have had so many people graduate. The quality may be arguable, but at least today, so many people have gotten degrees that they would not have otherwise gotten. So he was very futuristic in terms of education. And as someone may have said earlier on, Kimani Maruge, an 84-year-old man, showed up in school. In fact, Bill Clinton, former president of America, when he was asked who he wanted to meet, he said, I want to meet Mwai Kibaki. Because when he became president, he actually provided free education, and 1 million children showed up in classroom, in school. And he came all the way from America to come and have a chat with President Mwai Kibaki. I also remember him being hosted in Washington by the then President George Bush. It was very, very important that the Democratic Party leader was an icon of democracy. Is a man that even if we look at the current celebrations, they are not overrated and are being outdone like the way it has been done before on other people. And that in itself, that mien, that quiet, demeanor is very, very important. I was speaking to Jimmy Kibaki today, and he told me that it is the first time that he's stepping in Parliament today, for the first time, this time, because even when his father had served here for 10 terms, 50 years, he never allowed public service to be mixed with family. And that's the reason why that even he stayed at State House, so that he could have more time with his family, and so that grandchildren could visit him. So he separated family and public office, something that maybe some of us are not very good at doing. And it's a lesson that we may want to learn from him, so there's some form of stability going forward. So, Madam Speaker, I stand here tall, happy that we have a role model that we can look up to, someone who put the country first, and he was paid for it. The journey was arduous, it was treacherous. He had to really wait for so long to become president. He was bypassed by so many people who looked better and good than him, but still, the hand of God still made sure that he became the best president that I can say confidently here, out of the 4 presidents, he shines, he stands tall, he's a man who really, should be emulated. I want to end by a story that I read, a friend of mine was telling me about, that he was a policeman at State House, but he had taken a whole night watching football and he was fatigued. And he decided to sleep in a banana plantation at State House, one of the quarters, because it's a big piece of land. And then when he was sleeping, he only woke up when somebody tapped on him, only to find the commander-in-chief was asking, oh, where unajificha hapa? And they had a very good conversation, but he still let him to go and asked him, are you happy because I have increased the salary for the policemen? He made a lot of police reforms. And finally, Madam Speaker, the 2010 Constitution that he promulgated, that has mentioned persons with disabilities 18 times, is the same Constitution that has enabled me to stand here today, first in the 11th Parliament as a nominated member of the National Assembly, and today as a nominated senator. It is the same Constitution when I was being illegally removed from the Senate that defended me under the rule of law, and after 7 months I was able to come back to finish my term. I thank God for President Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki, a great man who lived in this country. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, we still have 5 members, and we have slightly less than an hour. I'm just saying that because there was no limitation that was given at the beginning, so we cannot start limitation now. But I want you to be conscious so that you be fair to one another. Senator Halage Abshiro Soka.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to eulogize our 3rd president, President Emilio Mwai Kibaki. And as we grieve for our 3rd president, His Excellency Emilio Mwai Kibaki, we should honor his memory and celebrate his life, which life is really rich in family, but more importantly, even rich in achievements. His towering achievements, Madam Speaker, have been spoken about by everybody here in this House. But for some of us that come from Northern Kenya, I think if we were to list some of the things that the 3rd president achieved, would be so proud as to say that he linked us to Kenya proper. How did he link us to Kenya proper? There was a time that beyond Isiolo, which is my county, you could not really come beyond Isiolo going towards Marsabit County. There were no roads at all. But during Kibaki's tenure as the 3rd president of the Republic of Kenya, he connected the Great North to what we had previously called ourselves not Kenyans proper. So we honor his life, we honor his legacy of towering achievements that has been said by all of the colleagues, from education, free primary education, to expanded higher education, to great infrastructural developments that today our economy runs on, to a lot of other things that he did in this country. We celebrate his life. And as I said, it's a life really that boasts of towering achievement. Madam Speaker, the grief of any person is felt most by the family. But a country constitutes a larger extended family too. So we also as Kenyans grieve for the loss of our 3rd president, but we are more in celebration because of the kind of leadership he showed us, a leadership that lived within its means. And that is why everybody who stood up to speak today spoke of him having not borrowed or having borrowed and used it wisely. He believed that every citizen including himself, must live within their means. And that showed very clearly in his legacy as a president that had the least debt, so to speak. And at the same time, the towering achievements that he achieved were then investments that were made very prudently, very cautiously, and with priority and focused strategic direction. Madam Speaker, our president had a distinguished career, as had been mentioned, of 50 years, from 1963 all the way to 2013. Leadership is given by God. Therefore, as they'd say in the Quran and in the Bible, that he is an anointed one, in the sense that you cannot have somebody lead for so many years. It's not to say that he's not had challenges or shortcomings, but he has led this country and has served and had the privilege of serving this country in very many capacities, in all of which he excelled. Madam Speaker, when our third president did not expect results from what he knew, he expected results from what he did. Because one of the things we make a mistake of, and especially those of us that are younger make a mistake, we think we know a lot, we studied a lot, and we expect the knowledge we have to give us achievements and results. But leadership is action. And he believed in action. He actioned. He made roads, he made schools, he gave free primary education, he promulgated a new constitution. He did all these things because he knew that you don't get results from just what you know. And boy, he knew a lot. He was so smart. He's an economist. He, as you were told, that he's the person that was behind some of the manifestos in Africa that were really one of the best at the time. But he actioned, and he practiced leadership as action. And for that, what a great mentor he has been for the youth of this country. Personally, I've had the privilege of working for the president as a youth. When he conceived the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, he didn't give to old people to execute it. He gave it to the young people, myself included, to go and put meat to it. We sat down. We didn't have an office. We sat down and created what today is a Youth Enterprise Development Fund. And when we brought to him with a very small amount, because in our little minds we thought 300 million is a lot of money, or 1 billion is a lot of money, and he said, what kind of money is that? I quickly, in fact, said, we can reduce it to 200 million, because in my mind then, that was a lot of money. He said nobody would take you seriously. He doubled that money, gave 2 billion shillings, and in the 3 years to follow, it became 5 billion shillings. And on top of that, the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, that was conceived by His Excellency, our third president, and given to the young people of this country to actually execute it, became the basis on which the Women Development Fund, the Ways of Fund were developed. In fact, when I read the documents, I can speak out sentences that we contributed as the youth of this country and as the first board members. Of course, we quit because at the time we felt like we were used to put in place a very, very robust system that was going to then provide people to steal, and we didn't want to be part of that. And looking back, we should have stayed and fought. But that having been said, he put his words where his thoughts were. He didn't just conceive something and give it to the older people to do. He conceived it and gave it to the young people to do it. And for that, we're very proud. It was our first experience with government, and of which we're very proud, and of which we continue to be proud and to show the results we've achieved for this country during his tenure. Madam Speaker, he saw the people behind the labels. At the time, the youth were called Mungiki, the youth Time Bomb, the youth this and the youth that. He actioned. He put the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, which to date continues to fund some of these things. His principle stands on a lot of things, be it living within your means, be it zero tolerance to corruption, be it not entertaining certain things, or be it actually asking people to take responsibility for their lives. Today, as we go campaigning, we come face to face with people who don't take responsibility for their lives. They probably think that politicians should take care of their lives. But President Mwai Kibaki had such a principled stance against any of these things. He would say, yes, serikali itasaidia, but within the environment within which you work for yourself. That is the mentorship. That is the direction that a leader should give, and he gave it very well. Madam Speaker, we that come from northern Kenya, when we talk of the great north, the big, bold north, which is a dream for most of us who would like to go into leadership to achieve that dream, we will be walking on the great road that His Excellency Mwai Kibaki made. For those and many other things that he has made, and he just quietly achieved them. You would never hear him chest thumping. Right now I've heard people saying that the Jubilee government has brought very bad things. They have done so many things. They have borrowed too much. The Jubilee government, in my mind, the Jubilee government is Uhuru Ruto. We campaigned for Uhuru Ruto. It is not just Uhuru alone. So if there's any responsibility, the two should take responsibility for it, and nobody should apportion blame and take credit at the same time. That cannot be. And so even as we eulogize our third president, who has, as I said, who has created a lot of, who has achieved quite a lot, and who has, in the last 50 years of his service to humanity and his service to the country, has the privilege of public service, but he did justice to it. Because today's public service is a shadow of what it should be. Public service that's supposed to be compassionate, public service that's supposed to really be capable, that is supposed to put in place the capable people, is nothing close to that. We are relying on other measures of public service. But he embodied the public service that is a privilege to serve, the public service that should be delivered with compassion, the public service that should be given to capable people to achieve great things, the public service that believes in action, that achieves results for the most vulnerable of this society. Madam Speaker, as one of the people that achieved the Millennium Development Goal for universal access to education, and is at the primary level, we celebrate our president. We celebrate this country for producing such an outstanding leader. Because right now, with the failure of nerve of leadership, with the crisis of leadership that we experience, today I hope his death and his legacy that is now been revived in his death will remind us, as we aspire to leadership, that we should emulate him. We should walk in his giant feet. Madam Speaker, I know a lot of my colleagues were saying they don't aspire to be presidents and therefore are asking other people aspiring to be president. Those of us, I cannot rule out aspiring to be a president because I'm following in the footsteps of such giants. And what should stop us from actually aspiring to be president? If we have that canvas, if we have that rubric that has been provided to us by our forefathers, President Kenyatta, President Daniel Arap Moi, President Mwai Kibaki, all of whom have shown us what public service should look like, what selfless service should look like. And therefore, without belaboring too much and without repeating all the good things that have been said, I would like to, on behalf of the people of Isiolo, whose voice we in Parliament are, on behalf of my own family, whose voice we are, on behalf of the people of the Great North, where I come from, I would like to say pole sana to our third president and his family, and look forward to the people of Kenya, because his death is coming at a very opportune time for us to make sure that we emulate him, and that we, as we aspire to greater office, to walk in his footpath, and to then serve this country with diligence, with compassion, with all the capabilities that we have, but more importantly, with love. Rest in peace, our third president, and may God continue to bless this country. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Milgo, Alice Chepkorir.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this chance to also add my voice in mourning this great leader that our country has just lost. The leader was distinguished himself to serve his people and to serve this country diligently. And that is why he's become the longest serving leader because actually he offered services to his people. He showed honesty. He was very accountable. And he lived true to his sayings that leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others, and it is not an opportunity to satisfy personal greed. I'm sure this long service, if he was like some of the leaders that we've seen around, he would be one of the billionaires that we would be having right now. Madam Speaker, I want to say at this particular time that we are mourning a great leader that actually touched the lives of very many people in this country. And more specifically, as I stand here today as chair, standing committee on education, I want to really mourn this great icon that turned around education in this country. One, bearing in mind that he knew education is an equalizer between the rich and the poor. And that is why once he brought in the primary education, very many kids were brought back to school, up to and including even the old. That is why we had one old school-going people, Mr. Murage. Unfortunately, he passed on before completing secondary cycle of education. Madam Speaker, the reason why, as an economist, he thought of offering or introducing pre-primary education and later on pre-day secondary education was because of the fact that he knew a country is as good as its education. Because from education, education would provide the skills, the knowledge and competencies to spur development. Madam Speaker, in education, he lived to actually achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which aims to ensure that inclusive, equitable, and quality education that promote lifelong opportunities for all is provided in Kenya. It is my wish, Mr. Speaker, that I hope this government, and maybe more specifically the coming government, would continue to even provide free education up to and including the university. Madam Speaker, once he's provided the free primary education, he went ahead to actually build infrastructure in the entire country. And that is why even in the results that have been released recently, both KCPE and KCSE, it is not uncommon to find that there are students who have done very well from day schools and from very humble backgrounds, Madam Speaker, and this is because of the fact that they can now enjoy learning just like other peoples. Madam Speaker, I want to say that our third president will be remembered for many years because of overturning the economy that was already doing very badly by the time he took office, by actually pulling and introducing things and infrastructure that would go a long way to turn around investments like infrastructure, putting in place very many plans to ensure that economy is turned around. And that is why many of my colleagues have recognized the fact that our borrowing actually reduced during his tenure as a result of providing the proper management. Madam Speaker, I want to say that today we are mourning a great icon who went ahead to actually play a critical role in promulgating the 2010 Constitution that has been known to be one of the most progressive constitutions in the whole world. Madam Speaker, out of this Constitution, I did not only ensure that there was the two-tier governments, that is the county governments as well as the national government, but he also ensured, because he knew he was not able to implement that he put in place a committee that ensured that county governments took root and in this case were properly established. Madam Speaker, county governments have gone a long way to turn around the lives of very many people, particularly in those counties where funds have been managed very well. We've seen a lot of infrastructure. We've seen lives turned around in terms of businesses in the counties because of the money that has gone all the way up to the villages as a result of this 2010 Constitution, Madam Speaker. In addition, within this 2010 Constitution, Madam Speaker, he remembered to ensure that there was a portion or a section that talked about not more than 2/3 gender rule, which actually spoke to the fact that in all government institutions, and up to and including parliament, there should be not more than 2/3 of both genders. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that today it is still not implemented. It is still a nightmare. Part of the greatest population, that is the 2%, is still left behind. But for this great economist, he knew that 52% of the population is women, and so he ensured that this one here is put in the Constitution. It is my prayer that the coming government will be able to implement fully. While I thank this current government, they have tried, but then in some sections, it is not fully implemented. So we thank this great leader for remembering the women, and today we stand here as even being products of that Constitution that actually felt that in cases where the 2/3 gender has not been achieved, we would have affirmative action. Madam Speaker, President Kibaki went ahead to actually oversee the creation of Vision 2030, which has gone to become a blueprint that is a focal point of reference wherever we are talking about any development. And in this case, Madam Speaker, if government will be able to stick to this, I'm sure this government will be turned around, and in a short while there will be very many developments. Madam Speaker, President Kibaki today, our third president, will go down in record books of history as a great man. Many of the leaders that we are seeing today came out of his mentorship. I remember during his time, even the CSS was given the free time, the opportunity to exercise, to use their skills and manage the various ministries in the way they knew. And in this case, it would come back, particularly if anyone messed up, and he would not take it very lightly. That is the reason why, Madam Speaker, we had so many, there is a lot of competition between the different CSS, and very many of them were able to turn around most of the departments in this country, and that went a long way to guide the people of this country. Madam Speaker, President Kibaki will be remembered for turning around very many issues in this country. Madam Speaker, he tied the youths in terms of ensuring that he even brought the border, that it is my prayer that the border sector will be ordered so that this one will continue to be a well-managed institution, because it has actually assisted our youths. Because as you know, Madam Speaker, right now, 75% of our youths that we are churning out of school every year are not employed. But then the border sector has actually assisted them. In addition to that one, President Kibaki also ensured that there was money provided not only for the youth, but also for the women to be able to turn around the economy in this country. Madam Speaker, today we are mourning a great icon, a leader that distinguished itself to actually be recognized not only in Kenya, but all over the world as being a no-nonsense president. And if in this case somebody would even emulate his steps and his actions even a quarter away, I'm sure would have even better things going on in the various countries and even in this the region at large. Madam Speaker, I want to say there are many things that our president did. I do not want to even forget to mention CDF. I remember one time when people asked the money as he was writing in some place along Bomet County, people stood to ask him money. And they said, what is the money for? Go back and walk. And then he came back and turned back the money that used to be given out along the roads, Madam Speaker, into CDF. CDF Kitty has done so much. It has changed the lives of people. And we are saying the only thing that is only lacking is the fact that corruption has since gone very high. I think we only need management. Otherwise, he put in place the infrastructure, the very many functions that only needs to be managed. Otherwise, it will go a long way to actually help our people. Madam Speaker, I do not want to go on for a long time. We cannot even, time is not even enough to enumerate many things that this third president of the Republic of Kenya did. I only want to say, on behalf of the people of Bomet County and my family, I want to say Paul to the family, Paul to the people of Nyeri, and to the people of Kenya at large, and to everyone whose actions of third president of this country tight, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Matsayo Stewart Mochiru.
Asante Bispika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Bispika, kitu cha kwanza nataka niungane na wewe Bispika kwa kupeleka rambirambi zangu, familia na hususan watu wangu wa Kilifi walionipa nafasi hii kuwakilisha ndani ya bunge la Senate. Nataka kupeana rambirambi zangu kwa watu wa Nyeri, Othaya na familia ya mwenda zake marehemu Mwai Kibaki. Bispika, kitu cha maana cha kumkumbuka marehemu ni kwamba marehemu alikuwa mshupavu wa mambo ya kudebate katika bunge, na ni kwa sababu hiyo Bispika, tunaona ya kwamba katika historia ya wanasiasa waliokuwa katika bunge, yeye alikuwa mmoja wao kwa kipaumbele, kwa sababu alikuwa ndani ya hili bunge kwa zaidi ya miaka 50. Bispika, wewe na mimi tunaweza kuelewa ya kwamba kuketi kwa hili bunge kwa miaka 50 ni kwamba umechaguliwa mara 10 kuingia hapa ndani ya bunge na wananchi wako. Kwa hiyo nataka kumpatia kongole vile vile kwa mfano wake mzuri sana kuweza kuchaguliwa na watu wake ama wa Kenya kuregeshwa ndani ya bunge kwa miaka kwa kupigiwa kura mihula 10. Ikiwa mhula mmoja ni miaka 5, mihula 10 inakuwa miaka 50. Ambalo ni jambo sisi wengine hatujui kama tunaweza kulifanya hilo, kwa sababu ya ujasiri wake aliweza kufanyiwa hivyo. Bispika, cha kwanza lazima tuzingatie huyu mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki alikuwa mtu wa aina gani. Bispika, tunaona ya kwamba alikuwa yeye ni mtu alisomea shahada ya uchumi. Bispika, wakati ule akisomea shahada ya uchumi ilikuwa ni watu kidogo sana ambao walikuwa wako na hizi shahada, na yeye katika ulimwengu alikuwa mmoja wapo aliyetambuliwa kwamba yeye taaluma yake aliyonayo ya uchumi inaweza kumfanya akawa kiongozi ama akaweza kusaidia ile nchi ambayo ametoka. Bispika, tunakumbuka katika hali hiyo hiyo ya uchumi alipochukua hatama ya uongozi, mabanki yalifungua milango, watu walikuwa wakiitwa kuenda kuchukua pesa. Lakini tunaona kabla yeye ilikuwa pia kupata loan ni vigumu. Baada ya yeye tumerudi pale pale, kupata loan ni vigumu ama kupata pesa kutoka kwa manyumba ya pesa, bank zile, ni vigumu. Lakini jambo la kushangaza ni kwamba wakati wa Kibaki hata kwa magazeti walikuwa wanachapisha, wanasema kama una haja na pesa kuja uchukue. Nakumbuka wakati huo economy ilikuwa nzuri kwa sababu watu waliweza kujifaidisha ama kujinufaisha kwa kuchukua mikopo, na kwa sababu uchumi ulikuwa bora watu waliweza kuendelea. Speaker, nataka kuja tu kusema kwamba mimi mwenyewe nilifanya kazi na Kibaki kwa muda wa miaka 3. Tulifanya kazi karibu sana na yeye. Nikisema hivyo ni kwa sababu mimi nilipokuwa chaguliwa kama mwenyekiti wa shirika la ukulima katika Kenya, Kibaki ndio aliweza kuingia ndani akawa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Na ni wakati huo ndio tulikutana wakati wa maonyesho ya ukulima yanayofanywa katika Kenya yetu kila mahali. Kwa hiyo tulizunguka na yeye, mimi nikiwa kama mwenyekiti wa shirika la wakulima na yeye akiwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya na patron kilele cha wakulima wa Kenya. Ikiwa yeye akiwa kama patron, ilikuwa inabidi yeye wakati wote tukiwa na show za kitaifa za ukulima, yeye lazima aje aweze kufungua ile maonyesho kirasmi. Kwa hiyo Speaker, nikisema hivyo ni mtu ambaye nilikuwa karibu sana, kwa sababu mimi nakumbuka tulikuwa tukipanda kwa ile gari pamoja, ile inaitwa nafikiria ilikuwa ni Commander in Chief CNC. Hiyo ndio gari tulikuwa tunapanda kila wakati wote tukiwa na yeye, tukizunguka katika zile show akiweza kufungua maonyesho ya wakulima. Kwa hiyo Speaker, ni wakati huo niliweza kuwa karibu na yeye na nikamjua ni mtu wa aina gani. Ni mtu alikuwa akipenda nchi yake, na ni mtu ambaye aliona ya kwamba lazima wakulima wasaidiwe. Na ni wakati wake, nakumbuka kama kuna mbolea ilishuka chini ikawa katika bei ambayo inaweza kununuliwa na wananchi wakulima, na wakaweza kulima na mazao yakapatikana. Wakati wa Kibaki kulikuwa hakuna njaa, kulikuwa hakuna bala njaa vile watu wanakufa namna hii siku hizi, kwa sababu yeye alifungua huo uchumi na alafu akaweza kuwapatia wakulima fertilizers ama hizi mbolea na kwa bei nafuu, ili waweze kuweka mambo ya ukulima upande wa mbele na nchi iwe na chakula cha kutosha. Speaker, nataka kukumalizia tu kusema ya kwamba wakati wote serikali ilikuwa ikifikiria habari ya kutengeza mambo ya barabara katika pwani, ilikuwa inafikiria watalii, haikufikiria watu wa pwani. Lakini tunaona kwamba wakati tu yeye alipochukua hatama ya uongozi wa nchi hii, alisema kuna watu wa pwani na wanahitaji kutengezewa barabara, ili kwa sababu kama kuna wakulima waweze kufika katika marikiti ama zile mazao yao wanaweza kuwapeleka katika masoko kuweza kuuza kabla zile bidhaa zao kuharibika. Kuna barabara moja ambayo tutaweza kumkumbuka ya kutoka pande za Malindi kuja mpaka Mombasa. Barabara hiyo ilipanuliwa na iliweza kusaidia watu wengi sana. Tukiangalia upande wa elimu, kwa mara ya kwanza tulikuwa tunafikiria haiwezekani kwamba watoto wanaweza kwenda skuli bila kulipa fee. Lakini ilikuja katokea maajabu ya kwamba wakati uchumi ukiwa bora, mambo mengi yanaweza kutengezeka. Na wakati huo ndio tunasema ya kwamba Kibaki alionyesha mfano wa uongozi. Ukiwa kama kiongozi wa taifa unaweza kufanya mambo namna gani. Na ndio tunaona sababu kulikuwa na watoto waliweza kwenda skuli wakiwa hawatalipa hata karo. Kwa hiyo tunaweza kumshukuru kwa hiyo. Speaker, nataka niweze kuachilia hapa. Kuna mengi ya kusema kwa mwenda zake. Kuna mengi watu watakumbuka kwa mwenda zake. Na sisi kama binadamu tuliobaki nyuma, sisi kama wale ambao tunaweza kusema ya kwamba ni viongozi katika hii nchi, tuige mfano wa marehemu Emilio Mwai Kibaki. Nataka kuambia kwamba wale watoto wake waliobaki nyuma waweze kushikilia familia. Letu litakuwa tu ni kuomba Mungu awajaze na imani wakati huu, na sisi tutazidi kuombea kwamba Mungu awapatie mwelekeo na waweze kuepukana na mtihani kama huu, ili wapate nguvu wao na wajukuu waweze kuwa na maisha bora mbeleni. Spika, la mwisho ni kwamba ufisadi ulikuwa hauko katika orodha yake, na hivyo ni kwamba wakati wake alipokuwa yuko pale kulikuwa ufisadi umerudi chini sana, na hivi sasa tunaona ufisadi umechipuka zaidi. Kwa hiyo tunaomba ya kwamba ikiwa kuna kitu chochote tunaweza kuiga, tuige mwenendo wa Rais Emilio Mwai Kibaki, mwenda zake, ya kwamba ikiwa yeye alikuwa hataki ufisadi, basi tunaona ya kwamba hivi sasa tunaelekea mambo ya uchaguzi, na tunaona ya kwamba katika huu uchaguzi tukishofanya kutakuwa na rais. Tunamjua atakayekuwa rais sisi. Siwezi kusema ni nani, lakini tunajua yule rais wangu ndio atakuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Na kwa hiyo tunasema ya kwamba ikiwa yeye ndio atakuwa rais, tuna imani ya kwamba yeye ataweza pia kuiga mfano wa Kibaki, kwa sababu walikuwa pamoja katika serikali ya nusu mkate, na hivi sasa yeye akiwa ataenda kuongoza hiyo nchi, kuongoza hii nchi yetu, basi jambo la kwanza la kufanya yeye kama rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya apigane na ufisadi kama vile Mwai Kibaki alipigana na ufisadi. Asante Bi Speaker.
Wachila yako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to join colleagues in the Senate, colleagues in the National Assembly, and colleagues in Kenya to mourn our departed third President of the Republic of Kenya. Madam Speaker, President Kibaki is a president who is fondly remembered by foes and friends as a person whose tenure was remarkable. Madam Speaker, I joined this parliament in 1997, and when I joined this parliament in 1997, Kibaki had been in parliament for 35 years. 35 consecutive years he'd been a member of parliament. Some of us who were rookies then found him in parliament. We served together in opposition benches, and we also served together in government. Madam Speaker, the opposition leader, who was Kibaki, was a very calm opposition leader. He was a committed member of parliament who consistently offered leadership by coming to parliament, staying in parliament, debating in parliament, and leaving parliament late after it adjourns, sits in the common room with members and takes his drink. In short, President Kibaki, before he became president, was a very accessible person, a very available person who passionately loved representing the people who had elevated him to be member of parliament for Othaya. He sat with us, many of us, most of us who were in parliament with him at that time are now deceased. I remember he used to have a beer very closely with the late Ojode. He used to have a beer very closely with the late Kajwang and myself. There are others who are still alive, Jimmy Angwenyi, Norman Nyaga, and others. And he never talked much when we were outside parliament, and still he never talked much when we were inside the chambers. But he kept us company and was marveled at the excitement that young people brought around him as a member of parliament. He was my leader as an opposition leader because I was also a member of an opposition party at that particular time. I had the privilege at that particular time of being the chairman of Public Investments Committee of the National Assembly, and he was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, and we had sittings at almost the same time, and after those sittings, we would sit together, listen to anecdotes from him, and also he would listen to us and understand more from us about the areas that we were representing and what was going on there. He was a keen listener. He was a fatherly figure, a very friendly person, and did not underrate or mistreat any of his colleagues. So he was a person who was a true replication, representation, and embodiment of a member of parliament. He did not treat anybody with disdain. He did not treat anybody with hostility. He was always available for colleagues who wanted his counsel. When I joined Parliament at that particular time, Parliament was the 23rd department of the Office of the President. We had very little by way of salaries. We had absolutely no autonomy. President Kibaki, then as the official leader of the opposition, did not agitate much for anything, but keenly listened to how we were structuring our reforms, the reforms that have led to the autonomy and the independence of Parliament that we enjoy today. That reform movement that had been initiated by backbenchers of Parliament at that time was led by one Castro Peter Oloaringo, and it comprised a team that had Jimmy Angwenyi, myself, Norman Nyaga, and other members who may not be members of Parliament today, and had the counsel and support of the leader then, President Kibaki. There was a time that we had the eagerness, the excitement of trying to increase our salaries. And when we had brought the motion to Parliament and it went through, then it came to the calculations of what was supposed to be truly ours. Our minds at that particular time was driven by the fact that Kenyans wanted development, and KANU's policy during those days was that development would be premised upon how many Arambes a member of Parliament would be able to initiate in his or her backyard. So President Kibaki looked at the figures that Jimmy Angwenyi had worked on and Engineer Karue and said, why do we want to raise our salaries to that amount of money? We said we were doing it because we were tired of having to take or part with our already strained and little salaries to put up public institutions. He just asked us one question: how much is enough money? He told us you could as well raise it to 2 million, but once the public will know that you have 2 million for development, they'll still come for it. You will keep none. So he advised us that raise it modestly, but think of a way that constituencies will have a fund that is dedicated for public development. That is what birthed the idea of CDF. The CDF that has revolutionized, the CDF that has changed rural constituencies into constituencies where modern services are offered to Kenyans, was an idea that came off the cuff from a remark made by President Kibaki while he was the official leader of the opposition, because he was opposed to giving handouts. He is one president, one public figure that you would never find carrying loads of cash to dish out to people. He was a stickler to fiscal policy and budget, And once a budget had been passed, he would ensure that the budget is executed and implemented the way it was passed. He did not believe in having roadside declarations. He believed that if you wanted to do something successfully, you wanted to do something in a measurable manner, you had to plan for it, budget for it, and stick to the implementation of that budget, and then you would have the outcome that you desired. So he advised us that we could not base our desire to satisfy the unmeasured needs of our constituents by raising our salaries. He advised that we needed to have a fund, and we today have that fund, courtesy and accolade to the departed president that we are giving, or we are eulogizing today. So, Madam Speaker, he was a great person in terms of management. He was a great person in terms of discipline. President Kibaki, as a member of parliament, would restrict his debate to parliamentary matters. He would always be orderly. And, Madam Speaker, for the period that we were together in Parliament, and for the period that I have cared to research about Parliament, he is one, and I think one and only member of Parliament who had never been called to order by the Speaker. He was orderly. I am yet, and I can challenge any of us to research the Hansard and find any instance where the Speaker had to look at the standing orders and rule him out of order. He was an avid reader. He was a thorough debater and a stickler to the rule of law and adherence to the standing orders. When we were in Parliament, because of the heated exchanges that we had in Parliament as we were trying to match the ruling party, KANU, at that particular time, most of us had to talk loudly. Most of us had to dramatize many things in order to catch the eyes of the Speaker. But the late president, as an opposition leader, never needed to do that. He was always calm, and I think his points, his arguments were so powerful that he didn't need any drama to make his point. And I want to advise those who are joining Parliament today, those who will join it after August, not to be rowdy and disorderly in order to be understood. They should emulate the behavior, the character, and the qualities exhibited by the departed president, that let your points be persuasive, let your points, let your arguments be authoritative. You may not need to be vocal, because vocality at times may not be heard, but you need to be persuasive, incisive, and very clear in what you want to be understood. And that's what he did. So for members of Parliament, his parliamentary tenure before he became the head of the executive was exemplary. And I think those of us who want to stay in Parliament should look at that. Many will talk about him as president, but many should also look at him as a member of Parliament. One of my colleagues here, Senator Wambu of Kitui, indicated with the concurrence of Senator Wetangula that he is probably the longest serving member of Commonwealth. Well, that is a high achievement, but it's not correct. Although the person that he comes second to was an outstanding parliamentarian, Winston Churchill is the one who beats the record that President Kibaki set. Winston Churchill became a member of Parliament in 1900 and served in Parliament continuously, save for 1922 to 1924, up to 1966, serving for 61 years. So Kibaki comes second by serving for 50 years. The late President Mwai served for 49 years. So you can see Kibaki, Moi, Winston Churchill are special people. They are special people because of the longevity of their tenure. They are special people because of their contributions to policy, legislation and representation in the nations that they served. I think they are also special people because of the confidence that the people they represented had in them. For you to be elected consecutively and continuously for 10 terms, that is a milestone. To get it 2 terms, to get 3 terms, to get it 10 terms, I think you are a great person. If the Constitution had not limited the tenure of presidency or allowed a retired president to come back to Parliament, I believe the people of Othaya would still have elected him unopposed because of the orderly manner, because of the structured manner in which, and the effective manner in which he represented his people. When it came to his tenure as president and head of nation, he was a great person. I had the rare privilege of serving in his government as the first Minister for Energy, his Minister for Energy, and later as the Minister for Sports, Culture, and Social Services. I did not canvass or lobby for that appointment, but I guess he picked on me because he saw promise, he saw honesty in me, and he really supported my tenure as a minister. I remember his commitment to Kenyans when I was his minister. I was a minister full of ideas. As a young person in early 30s, I thought that the world was in my pocket and I was atop the world. So I, at one time, brought a cabinet paper to President Kibaki full of English and full of what I would call bombastic language that was not very clear. Now that I look at it from a calm position, he looked at it and told me, Honorable Ochilo, just tell me 2 things. When will the cost of energy come down and be affordable to Kenyans? That's what he asked me. Said that all these nice words you have written here are nothing to Kenyans if the cost does not come down. So this work is very good, but when is the cost of energy coming down? So I went back to my ministry, looked at it, and that's when we came back with the idea of unbundling the energy sector. We took away KenGen and made it an infrastructural institution so that the cost of generation of electricity would not be passed on to consumers. We left KPLC as a distributing entity that was supposed to charge a modest revenue, and the cost came down and became stable. And President Kibaki became very happy about that. When it came to petroleum products, however much there was a pressure to place taxes on petroleum products, he was consistently saying that that is a no-go zone because that would increase the cost of energy and would affect the cost of living of Kenyans. So President Kibaki was very sensitive to something that would cost Kenyans more. He is a president we should have had today, this week, last week, this month, because nobody seems to know how to handle the rising cost of energy and energy products. And Kenyans are suffering everywhere. So President Kibaki, at that time, when we had a crisis of similar proportion, did not go out there to talk. He acted and everything calmed down. So that is President Kibaki speaking loudly through his action, not speaking loudly through his noise. We all remember that he was at one time dropped as a vice president and made Minister for Health. A situation that other people could not countenance. I do not want to talk negatively about the late Simon Nyachai, with whom we also served, both in government and in opposition benches. Nyachai could not countenance being dropped as Minister for Finance and being assigned another ministry. Kibaki diligently served as Minister for Health, having been dropped from being Minister for Finance, being a Minister for Finance and also Vice President, and never complained about it. Here, in the current situation, you can see the loud and disruptive complaints that are coming from the office of the Deputy President on matters that we do not know. I think if Kibaki was the Deputy President now, he would keep it to himself, just like Moi kept it to himself, and the noise and misunderstanding that would be there in the government would not be used or visited on Kenyans like us and make us to suffer. Is my time up?
I give you, for the convenience of the House, I'll give you your last 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, just want to say in conclusion that the office of the President, not just in Kenya, is an awesome office. It is an office that everybody in the world looks up to, not just in Kenya, but in any nation where such executive authority is vested in an individual. Madam Speaker, it requires a person with emotional intelligence, it requires a person with even temper, it requires a person with unmatched magnanimity. President Kibaki, who we are eulogizing today, was such a person. He was a person who was never angry at his adversaries. He was a person who was never vindictive towards anybody. He was a person who, in spite of the fact that we parted ways in an unacrimonious way, did a lot to advance my career outside of politics and appointed me to various public positions and supported my career thereafter. I want to tell the family how sorry we are, I want to tell the nation how sorry we are, and I want to conclude by saying, may the good Lord rest his soul in eternal peace. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, it's now 6:32 p.m., time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Wednesday, 27th April 2022 at 2:30 p.m.